Nikki, what was your first job in the entertainment industry after you graduated college?
So I got a job at Fox 2000, which is a division of 20th Century Fox, or it was a division of 20th Century Fox. The divisions are broken up into specific groups that focus on different sorts of films. So we focused on a lot of book adaptations. We also focused on things that we called Triumph of the Human Spirit, big character stories. Examples, I got to work on Hidden Figures. We did Life of Pi. Way back when was Devil Wears Prada and Walk the Line. So it was a real dream job because it I got to do movies that I really loved. I got a job as an executive assistant. So that's the traditional path into the film industry. You can start at a talent agency and work your way up. The film business doesn't matter really what you have your degree in, how many degrees you have. Everyone really starts at the same level. So you typically start as an assistant. So I was an executive assistant at Fox.
And what was your role in those big movie names that you mentioned? It sounds super cool. So, as an executive assistant, how are you connected and how are you helping with those movies?
When I first started, I did a lot of administrative work because, that's just kind of the name of the game. You focus on making sure that the executive you're working for has everything that they need to be extremely successful. But as time goes on and you build trust and a relationship with your boss, you really get to be involved in the whole process. So, that's going down to what we call dailies, which is looking at different cuts of the film and looking at different scenes, which is super fun. It's seeing the film in its raw form, getting to hear the director speak, things like that. And then you're doing notes on projects. Really, as time goes on, you're doing the job that you want. So the job that I have now, I started kind of doing as an executive assistant to prove myself that I was ready to take on a more creative responsibility. So beyond the administrative stuff, it is a lot of creative input.
What's the most ridiculous thing you had to do while you were an executive assistant? Because, like you said, that's bottom of the totem pole, but you need to get your foot in the door that way. What's the craziest story you have from that time in your career?
Oh my gosh. I'm so lucky. My boss, she really was great. She didn't ask me to do a whole lot of personal things. I do recall like the first few months I was working for her, she just didn't have the time to book her soul cycle class. And so I remember it because I don't know if you guys have ever taken soul cycle, but they fill up really fast. And so you kind of have to like keep your finger on the mouse and you have to like be the first person to get into the class. So I remember doing that, maybe running a couple of errands and stuff, but she really was a dream to work for. I mean, I work with her now as we're colleagues now, but she really was a dream to work for. So she never had me do a lot, but I've definitely heard horror stories from other people. So
That's like what you see in the movies all the time of the executive assistant doing all this bitch work that has nothing to do. They have all these incredible degrees, are the smartest, most creative people, and they're like clicking the soul cycle thing. But that's a funny story
exactly.
I guess you guys can laugh about now.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Nikki, it's so hard for me to call you Nikki. It feels like I'm forcing myself, but for the sake of this podcast, calling you Nikki.
It's funny. Everyone in my company calls me Coop because there were two Nikki's at our company and they just got used to calling me Coop and it's like, it's stuck, which is so fun.
Well, that's cute that it
Yeah.
lasted all through. We can talk about your nickname another time. Were you given that? No one just goes, call me Coop, like in college. Um,
No, I don't remember how it happened.
okay. So Nikki, it's extremely difficult to land a job in the entertainment industry, but you were able to do that fresh out of college. And you were even doing stuff for it while you were in college. So what made you unique and why do you think Fox hired you out of the thousands of applicants they were probably receiving from all over the world?
Well, I think the internship I had at Fox 2000 is huge. I just committed. I got a car the same month that I got the internship and I started commuting from Santa Barbara to LA, I stayed 2 nights a week. I did 2 days of internships back to back, and I stayed with an aunt there. And then I drove back to Santa Barbara Friday night and had my weekend. And then I did it all over again the next week. And I did that for all of winter quarter and a little bit of spring. And then I was on the job hunt, and I will say, like, I think I did a good job. I think I proved myself in a lot of ways, but I also think there is something to say about timing with all jobs, obviously. And the girl that ran the internship program, she was leaving the company and she wanted to put me up for it. So that's what happened. And I interviewed while I was in Santa Barbara over the phone, and I got the job, and they asked me to start the day after graduation. So I think I think I did a lot of work for them, and I really tried to prove myself in the best way that I could. But yeah, but along with that and timing, it all just worked out.
And the whole time you were always so nice, cool as a cucumber. Nikki had the horror and pleasure of living with me senior year. So she got to come home to me already ready for party mode for the weekend, and she would buckle up and we'd go out. So props to you, Coop.
Thank you.
And talk to us about what that position at Fox was that you got hired on full time, and what did your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so after the internship, the next day after graduation started, I was just, like I said, doing administrative work and stuff like that. Really, I think a big part of it is trying to just grasp the industry. And, when you're in college and you take these courses that are really theory based, history based, they're not as practical sometimes as just getting your foot in the door and just starting. So I was extremely nervous. Um, she's one of my best friends now, but the girl who sat across from me, and she had just graduated, not even just graduated, she had graduated a couple years before with a master's from USC. She was a little bit older than me. I felt like, such a small fish in a big pond. But I think really a lot of it is networking, learning to just see who all the players in the game are. That was a big part of it. And I think just building relationships with people, it's an industry full of relationships. It's really what it's about. So that was the focus for me, beyond learning the day-to-day of the job, which, like I said, is administrative stuff, some creative stuff. A big part of it is networking drinks. You go to drinks a couple times a week. It's like a constant blind date. It's you're nervous because you have to pitch yourself to these people, and they're pitching themselves to you, and it feels like you're constantly on a blind date or an interview because you're sitting there having a drink with someone when you'd rather go home and have like a drink with your significant other or your friends. But you're doing it because it's how you build relationships, and some of those drinks turned into true friendships. But that's a huge part of the job too. So
that's well,
go ahead, Alexa.
That's definitely been a theme throughout all of the people that we've interviewed for Content and Cocktails. No matter what interaction you're having, whether you're forcing yourself to go out for happy hour drinks after work just to rub shoulders with those executives or people who are even a level higher than you, or a random encounter like at a restaurant, you never know who is going to come back into your life and when. And the most wonderful things typically happen that way.
Totally. I totally agree. You never know. The cool thing is when we're all starting so young, everyone kind of starts, it reminds me a little bit, I always use this reference, it reminds me a little bit of a pledge class or new member class from like a sorority, because I was sorority president, so I have to say it, but you get to grow with these people, and everyone's kind of moving up at the same level. So like a lot of people that I started out with an assistant, we were both assistants, we're now maybe both executives, or then one's an agent, one's a producer. And so it's great when you make those relationships when you're young, and then you keep growing together and you want to see each other thrive. So you try to help each other out, and it's great.
Talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned that you were one of the youngest there at the company when you first got hired, and Alexa and I are huge advocates of that. We want everyone listening to this podcast to sometime be the youngest at their company or in the position that they're holding. How did you go about that, having to build relationships with people that are older than you and get people that are older than you or seem more experienced to trust you and to trust your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to just try to exude confidence, even if you don't necessarily have it. And I know that's easier said than done, but I think just someone told me once, which I always kept this advice with me, that it's really no one has the answer, especially in a creative business like we're in. It a lot of people could like it, a lot of people could hate it in terms of a film or content or anything like that. You really never know. No one has the exact answer as to what is going to be a great film or what's going to be a great show, but you just have to trust your instincts. And I think if you sound confident and you really believe in it, then that's all it is. So I think going out and really being confident in what I know and being confident in what my um, passions are, what the kinds of content I want to put into the world. I think that is a huge aspect of it. It's always intimidating to be the youngest person, but I think if you like kind of exude a maturity and a confidence, that helps, because people don't really see that you're younger than them if it sounds like you know what you're talking about. So I think just trying to exude that is the number one thing.
Mm-hmm. And a good tip there is practice makes perfect. That's why talking with people and going to these networking events and even just speaking up at work, practicing being convicted in what you're passionate about, especially when you work in a creative business, and knowing the type of projects you want to work on is so important. Even just, I try speaking the way I speak to my colleagues at work to my family. I spoke that way to my brother yesterday, closed a deal with him, told him he's never allowed to show up on my doorstep again without letting me know. And so even speaking clearly and more concisely and just practicing your deliberate speech has been so helpful for me, because I tend to drift off into nowhere land.
Yeah, me too. I think that's great advice.
I say that as I'm sitting here in purple overalls, like, yeah, be mature. Yeah. I just act your age. So Nikki, what happened after Fox was acquired by Disney? That is a huge acquisition and probably both terrifying and exciting as someone who was working at the company getting acquired.
It was exciting when it took a long time. The whole deal was in process for a couple of years, and as far as we knew at Fox 2000, we were going to be a part of the Disney company. So we were kind of going into it when we were picking up projects and we were deciding on what we wanted to make. We were going at it thinking we're going to be a Disney company. So it was a huge just shock when Disney decided to not keep Fox 2000. It was a bummer, because the president of our company, who's still my current boss now, she has been at Fox, 20th Century Fox, for 30 years. She had been there for 30 years, and she had been the president of Fox 2000 for 20 years, and it was like her child. So it was a huge shock to us that they didn't really see the value in Fox 2000, especially with so many of the great films that we put into the world. But
real quick, is there a difference between Fox and Fox 2000? And if there is,
Yes.
can you explain it?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
So 20th Century Fox, the overarching company, has different divisions. So they have what we call Big Fox, which is just their major label, which focuses on things like they put out Deadpool, they put out Wolverine, they put out kind of more big tentpole movies. Then you have us, and we had a big range of what we could put out too, but a lot of it was book adaptations. In more recent years, we did Love, Simon, and The Hate You Give. Before that, we did Fault in Our Stars, things like that. It was a range of different budget films and things like that. And then they had Searchlight Pictures, which I'm sure you guys have heard of too, which is more of their indie division, and they put out smaller films, maybe awards, Oscar stuff, things like that. So they're broken up into different divisions because we focused on different things. So when 20th Century Fox was acquired by Disney, they decided to keep Big Fox and to keep Searchlight, but they dissolved Fox 2000. So it was a huge bummer.
That's
but
That's
then
so
what
difficult.
happened?
Yeah, it was heartbreaking, but the cool thing is that we popped open bottles of wine and the incoming calls came in. Like Elizabeth, our president at Fox 2000, she is just so beloved by the industry. And so everyone was calling her and saying, like, we have your back, like whatever you want to do next, let us know. And the coolest thing ever, and this is kind of the thing that I aspire to be as I, keep going in my career, is that she said, I'm not taking any jobs just for me. I'm only taking a job for my entire team. So whatever company can bring my entire team, I'm not losing anybody. And she was like, I will only like really entertain ideas from that. And so she got huge studios who were interested. She got huge filmmakers who were interested in her, just her, and she turned it all down because she was like, I'm bringing my whole team. I'm not going to leave them. They're like the bread and butter of what I do. So we ended up going with Sony, and they made her a deal to bring all of us over. So we all came with her to a new division, and she started a new division.
Yeah, that gave me chills.
What a leader that is.
Absolutely.
How many people were on your team?
So there were, at the time, there were 4 senior executives, a couple of junior executives, and then a whole bunch of assistants.
So it was a big team.
Yeah, it's a big team.
Wow.
It's a big undertaking for a studio to do, but they had a lot of faith in what she can do. And so we got a month off, which was awesome. And then after that, we started at Sony. It was great.
So tell us more. Tell us, so you went over to Sony. What was the new division? What were you working on when you came there? What did you guys build? And then what was your title? Did it change at all, or how did your role adjust after this shift?
Yeah, so I came over as an executive assistant to my same boss that I was working with at Fox 2000, and what was cool is, like I said, we got to be at the forefront of the company, and so we were sitting in logo meetings. We were getting being able to give input on things that felt way above my pay grade, but it just felt so fun to start something new. And we also got to decide, like, what do we want to make going forward? Like, as a group, what do we want to be known for in this new division? And we wanted to do the same great things that we did at Fox 2000, which, like I said, they're like triumph of the human spirit stories, character stories, family, big, family comedies, things like that. Whatever we love to do, we got to do at Fox 2000. We want to continue to do that, but we also got to decide that we're going to do TV. And I had never gotten to do TV, but obviously, like, everyone right now, I mean, TV is where it's at. Like, things, we binge shows because TV's so good right now, and we're reconsidering, what audiences want, what they'll go to the theater for, what they want to watch in the comfort of their home. And so the industry is constantly evolving. So I think us being able to start fresh was really cool. And so I got to Sony, helped us get all set up, started acquiring books, trying to put a little slate together. And then in January of this year, I got promoted up to a junior executive. And so now my title is a creative executive. So I get to no longer do any assistant duties. And maybe one day I will get my own assistant.
That is so cool. And you mentioned something, you were sitting in these meetings feeling, wow, this is way above my pay grade. What was a moment for you where it was like a pinch me moment, like, oh my God, this is my life right now. This is my job. Do you remember any specific moment or project that you were working on where that happened?
Let me think. I totally do, because I was just saying that to someone, but now I can't think. I think when I first toured the Sony lot, it was really cool, as someone who's always been a film buff, and I worked on the Fox lot, which the Fox lot is a beautiful lot too. And I don't know if you guys know, the studio lots, they are like big, huge towns, basically. They're behind gates, and a lot of people don't know unless you've toured it. You can tour, Universal and all those things, but they are these little towns with gyms and coffee shops and cafeterias and bungalows all over. And we knew that we wanted to be in the more historical side of the lot. We didn't want to be in any of the new modern buildings, because we just love to be like, feeling that film history around us. And so when I toured the Sony lot for the first time, and I knew I was going to be working there, we went into they call it the Barbra Streisand, why can't I think? It's the Barbra Streisand like musical room, and basically she has recorded all of her albums there. But what was huge about it is that the room is considered to have perfect acoustics, and only a couple places in the world have what they consider scientifically as perfect acoustics. Abbey Road, where the Beatles recorded, obviously is known as having perfect acoustics, and then so is this place. And it's so old, like they haven't made any changes to it, because if you make changes to it, you could lose those acoustics. And the way they figured it out is that Judy Garland went in there because she just got like pushed in there because they were using a different recording studio. And she sang live Somewhere Over the Rainbow in that room, and they realized it sounded amazing, and they started recording in there. And so they recorded, I mean, Sony Music as a whole, obviously huge group, you know, massive amounts of artists that are under their label. So they record there, but I just felt like chills being in there because I was like, Judy Garland like stood here and sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And I felt like this is just so cool. Just, you know, it used to be the old MGM lot. And so just even in our bungalow, like Elvis had like an apartment there. And like, you know, there's just, it just feels like you're surrounded by Hollywood history, and there's a lot of dark stuff to that too. But like for the most part, like it just felt like I knew I wanted to be a part of Sony after that because it just feels so authentic to, you know, what I love. So it was cool.
That's so cool. I've toured at Universal, like I'm sure many people have, on like those tours that you get whenever you go to Harry Potter World or whatever. And even for that, even just being like one of the thousands of tourists, it's chilling to see like, oh wow, I saw that movie in a theater on a big screen. And I can only imagine the even cooler stuff you get to see being a part of that lot. And
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I can just imagine you being in there in this perfect acoustic hall, thinking to yourself, yep, this is exactly the path I want to be on. And this is the type of history that I want to be a part of and help change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's so much more fun being a part of something way bigger than yourself.
And let's talk about that a little, because obviously Hollywood is known for lack of diversity, not just in cinema, but also in the executive level, in the producing level, and basically all types of jobs in Hollywood. Can you share with us your experiences with, or any experience with that, and what you've been doing to try and change it on your own level?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm seeing more young people that are passionate about it too, which is great. But you know, at the top of a lot of these companies are old white men. That, you know, and it's tough because, you know, I'm lucky because I, like I said, was working for this great leader, and she is a super strong, smart female, and she hired majority of female executives. So I felt kind of in this bubble of like, this is great. Like this business is awesome. Like, you know, I'm working with badass females who also want to put, you know, this diversity into the world and stuff like that. But yeah, I will say like, you know, I did have experiences being one of the only people of color in the room a lot. And at the end of the day, like, you know, just because we are a team of female executives, it doesn't necessarily mean that we had the final say in a lot of things. And so there were a lot of difficult conversations that I heard, you know, that when it came from a publicity standpoint or a marketing standpoint, you know, like we're making a movie about police brutality and like, you know, so then you have marketing people who don't understand but are discussing Black Lives Matter, and you're like, hey, like I'd like to speak on this, you know, or like, you know, and there were times, and I will say that like I have never been shy about speaking up. And like when we were making a movie about police brutality, I had a conversation with the senior executive about it. I wanted to give my input about it. And luckily, I'm on a team that really encouraged me to speak. But I know that there are other places in the business where people feel too uncomfortable to speak out if they feel like something is unjust. And I know it's because at the end of the day, a lot of times it feels like there's a bottom line, and it's, you know, really about, at the end of the day, it's about making money. It's about reaching out to the middle America. It's about really making everyone happy, which you can't always do, especially when it's coming to race or difficult conversations. But, you know, now that I'm in a position where I can search and seek out material, I think it's really important to me that I'm seeking out stories that are diverse and that are telling people from a different perspective. Because when I was young, all the movies I loved, I mean, none of them starred biracial people or women, or none of them starred Black people, or, you know, really, like I felt like it was, I just didn't see it that much, you know? And so I think if I have even just an ounce of influence at all in stuff that we can make as a division, I would love to just keep bringing in more projects that are diverse. And it's not even just a star, you know, being diverse, because at the end of the day, like a lot of times it's like a white guy writing it, and then they're writing for a Black woman, and it's like, do you understand her perspective? Like, can you really understand like where she's coming from? And so I would just love to see like in front of the camera, but behind the camera, a lot more diversity. And I think like industry is finally, even though it's a slow transition, is finally understanding that. So
At
yeah.
least you were speaking up. And I think even for myself, when I see if I see something wrong in a meeting and I'm one of the only women and it's happening to someone else, I feel really scared to speak up. But like 10 out of 10, every single time I've said something, I know it was the right decision. And I think in a lot of positions, no one's going to get mad at you for it. And I think if anything, they're going to respect you for being able to speak up. And what you said too about lack of diversity in movies, I've noticed the same thing about older movies and TV shows that I love that I rewatch. Like Alexa knows, I love Seinfeld. I've seen every episode several times. And I was watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is just like Larry David, who created Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own show, and they have an episode where a Black woman goes up to him and says, all during Seinfeld, you had, I don't know, 7, 10 seasons, and not once did Elaine date a Black man. Not once did Jerry date a Black woman. And it's so true. And when you're growing up and you're watching TV, like that's how life should be, right? Oh, I see the pretty blonde white girl dating the pretty like blonde white guy. And that's I think is the norm. So I think changing that is going to have a wide reach on the American culture.
I agree. And I think it's tough for those of us who like, my dad was Black, my mom was white, and it's like that was my norm. That's what I knew. And like, and then not seeing that, I'm like, it's like that was that weird? Like why, why as a kid, you're just like, why don't you feel like you're represented on TV? So I know, and I think like we're coming a long way. I think there is, there's more trans representation, there's a lot, people are really working towards it, I think. And it does start with these big companies that have to, genuinely want to make a change. So
it doesn't just start from the bottom. It has to happen at the top too. And you have to meet in the middle at the ground that everyone is supposed to be, no matter what type of company that you work at, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's in tech. Where'd Natalie go? Where'd she go? She'll be back. Maybe she accidentally pressed something. But until she comes back, that's kind of like you standing in that hall, getting ready to be a part of this new history. And there's so much change happening every single day. Like even at mine and Natalie's work, I've been having to have really tough conversations. Like I think I'm a generally strong person, and I've had to stand up to people who are who are co-founders of our company saying, hey, you told me that asking you to change systematic sexism in the workplace would be like asking Jill, Shani, and Patrick, who are 3 Black employees, to change systematic racism. And that is not right. And them defending it blindly. And I'm so happy that you're a part of that groundswell.
I know it's hard. Like it can't just fall on the shoulders of the only people of color in the room. There has to be a sense of allyship. There has to be people who want to, like do it from the bottom up or the top down.
So you've demonstrated that you are able to speak up in situations and in creative projects, whether that's voicing your opinion about a logo or a lead, whatever you are doing. Something that you're really good at is being able to read a room. So can you share some tips on why that's important, how to read a room, and what to do with that insight after you've done that?
Sure. So, I think it's important in most industries that you really learn to listen and absorb. I think we're so eager always to speak because we want to seem like, we have something important to say. But I think that also contributes to the question that I was asked earlier, which is that, how did I get the job from being an intern? And I think I actually helped run the internship program at Fox 2000 after I was an intern because I kind of knew it firsthand. And the interns that really succeeded were the ones that like kind of kept their head down for a bit and were like, let me absorb what's going on. Let me see and feel out how these people work, what the company culture is, and then let me start to, open up and be included. And I think those people always excelled because they weren't jumping in and being over eager and kind of either putting their foot in their mouth or kind of intruding in things that maybe they weren't necessary to be a part of at first. And I think like it's not saying, like I was saying earlier, it's not saying not speaking up, it's just knowing when to speak up, I think. And it's knowing that you don't always have to have an opinion, and that's okay. Like, I think it's really important that you are okay with listening and absorbing and learning from those that have experience before you. And I think that's a huge part of reading a room is just understanding. So anytime you started a new company, no matter what industry it is, I think it's really important to listen and learn and absorb the company culture before you step in and try to be, and it also just rubs people the wrong way. And if you're a people person, you understand that it takes a minute for people to really accept someone new, and that's okay too. But I think it's just important to be able to absorb what's going on around you and figure out like who can be my mentor in this group, who can be my friend in this group, who do I really, before you even jump in and align yourself with someone or align yourself with something, really try to understand who these people are and how they work. And doing that will just be better success for you in the future, because number one, people don't think that you're over eager and you don't annoy them. And number two, you have a real footing for the company and the people, and that you can align yourself in a great way for your future.
Your point is amazing, because so many people think that the way to stand out in a room is to raise your hand and speak up first and be the loudest. And you are being more strategic about it and a lot smarter, and saying, instead of just going and sharing my opinions because I think they're the best, first I'm going to take the time to learn about the people that I'm working with. And being strategic like that will get you a million times farther than just being loud. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
And part of that, I guess, is your leadership skills. You are a natural born leader with a type A personality, clearly as the president of your sorority as a junior only. It showed while you were young. Sophomore and junior. Oh my gosh. It definitely showed while you were young. So can you share what leadership qualities do you have and how they've helped you move forward in your career, in case someone is looking to foster and develop those skills themselves?
Sure. So I think, like I said, being a good leader, you can exude confidence too. That, exuding confidence, like I said, is important, so that people feel like you know what you're talking about. And I know that sometimes you don't, and that's okay. But trying to stay confident in yourself is really important. And I don't always feel confident in myself. I mean, we all have imposter syndrome sometimes, and wonder if, oh my God, like, am I really cut out for this? That happens to us all the time. But yeah, I mean, I've always I never even try, and then I just end up in a leadership role. I don't know why. It's just always
Okay.
Because you care genuinely and are not actively trying to just hit the check boxes. You're caring about people. I don't
Totally.
work for you there, but I would guess.
No, and that's a huge part of it. I think empowering people and listening to people is huge. Empowering people to being a leader doesn't mean that you do everything, or that and I don't even want to do everything. I think it's being able to empower people to want to do things for you because they care, or because you care so much that they also feel that. Like, it's just something that when you really care about something, people feel that, and they also take it on. It's kind of like a, you know, spiritual thing. Like, everybody's caring in the room and things get done. And when you work for someone who's just an ass, well, not that anyone works for me. Nobody works for me currently. But in the past, when people have been like maybe in a role below me, like, I feel like they understand how much I care. And so they also want to do that, and I think a really huge part of that is just being a nice person and being, you know, not doing anything. Like, I think it's important, like I said, like you said, to be strategic, but it's also important to be really open and kind to people. And I think that's hard in the entertainment industry. Sometimes people feel like they have to be sly and sneaky, and that's the way that they feel like they can get ahead. It's like, in my leadership skills, like, I've always been consistently kind, I think that's how I hope to be. I don't like hope to be like a hard ass, but be like someone that people want to learn from, and like, people want to, care like me, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not like you want to be the leader that inspires people not to like try and get on your good side, but that aspire to make you proud so that they can receive more of that great care and love from you. But I can imagine that does get exhausting sometimes. So you're a huge advocate for self-care and mental health, and you've struggled with anxiety and depression in the past. And in an industry like entertainment, where it is so cutthroat, I mean, just from what I know and what I've seen on TV, which apparently can't trust anything. So what do I know? But in an industry where you feel like you have to be on all the time, why is it important to take a mental health day from work? And how do you even go about asking for that without feeling guilty or weird about it?
Yeah, like you said, I've struggled with depression and anxiety before. And when I went to the doctor to talk about it, the doctor was like, but, you know, you seem perfectly put together. And that always stuck with me because those of us, who do are a little bit type A, or, we do work really hard, like it always does come across like you're put together. But if you know deep down that there's something off, or that you're just not feeling right, then you have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to your body. And I think that mental health is just as important as any other health concern you have going on in your body. And I think if you're allowed to take a sick day for um, a cold or whatever it is, then like, of course you should be allowed to take a sick day for your mental health. And I think in the past, when I've struggled, I've decided, I'm going to just email work and I'm going to say, I'm not feeling well today. I'm going to take a sick day and I'll be back in tomorrow. And I think they're going to ultimately get a better employee out of me, and a better work day out of me, because if I go there and I'm feeling really down and really off, feeling like irritable, maybe I snap at people, maybe I have a little breakdown in the bathroom, like whatever it is, that's not getting the best out of your employee. So like if I stay home and I do the things that bring me peace and help me feel better, and then I go the next day and it's all smiles and I'm feeling better. And I'm not saying that like it can be cured in a day, but taking that day off does help. And I think one thing that really stuck with me forever is when I studied abroad in Italy, and the culture there is so different. It's interesting because people don't ask you the first thing they ask you, they don't ask you, what do you do? And they think that's so interesting that Americans ask when they meet you, hi, like, how's it going, so what do you do? It's like they're like, who cares what you do? Like they're like, that doesn't make who you are. I want to know you. And it's so funny because obviously this is a career podcast and we're all career oriented, but I also think it's really important to have balance, in your life, to have a healthy mental health, like, and so when I was there, I remember specifically touring this vineyard, and this father and his two sons ran his vineyard, and they said, yeah, we have the capacity to put out like 80,000 bottles of wine a year, but we only do 15,000 just because like we enjoy our lives. And I was like, you never hear that in America. Like you hit capacity, like you put out what you could need to put out and you make as much money as you possibly can. And it's like, that always stuck with me. I don't know why, but it just feels like I'm going to put out everything I can, but I'm not going to give more than my limit.
Nikki, so what you said about you being extremely put together and your doctor wondering why you would have those issues, I've seen that in so many people. The people who are the top of the class, who are the smartest, who have everything put together, like 9 out of 10 times, they are the ones that are actually struggling with the most underlying issues of like mental health. And I think it's because what you said, they're always pushing themselves to capacity. So while the everyday person looks at them and is like, wow, their life's so great, they're so perfect, in reality, there's other underlying issues that a lot of them are facing and struggling with. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I'm glad that you're taking these mental health days. And when you decide to take a day off, what do you end up doing on that day?
Yeah, I just end up doing anything that makes me feel at peace or calm, whether if I feel like moving my body and I need to go on a walk or do yoga, then I do that. If I feel like I just need to rest and I put on a favorite movie that I love and that, it gives me nostalgia, brings me joy, maybe I'll won't be hard on myself about what I'm eating that day. Like, whatever it is that I think people enjoy doing, if you have to just take the day to do that or journal or something. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do something reflective if you don't want to. You can just do something that you purely enjoy if that brings you a little bit of peace and it calms any anxiety you have, or, talking to friends, I think, or calling your therapist or going to see your therapist, whatever it is, I think really huge. And I mean, I love a really good bath with like a, book or a glass of wine or something. And then Lex knows, like, I will be in bed all day. Like, I love a good nap. Yeah. So
That
if
girl
that's what I
can
need,
sleep
that's
through
what I need.
everything. In college, Nikki used to have this like weighted lavender eye mask, and we would all take turns laying in her bed. And she's like, "Isn't that nice? That's why I sleep all day sometimes." We're like, "Yeah."
Love my
I
I
need one of those.
talk to us why you're so passionate about giving back to your community and some examples that you've done in the past.
Sure. So I'm not like Jesus himself, but like I've just always like enjoyed, I've just always enjoyed doing little things like, and even it can be as small as doing something for a friend or family. Like I love the holidays. I love gift giving. My favorite thing about Christmas is watching other people open the gifts I got them. Like I've just always really liked doing that. And so I thought like, okay, like if I enjoy doing this, like what are different ways that I can get involved? And it's hard when you have a full-time job to do things. There are places where I'm like, I want to volunteer here, but they're like, oh, it's after school program. Are you available 3 to 5? And I'm like, definitely not. I have a
I do
full-time
think
job,
they
but
make volunteering so hard. I don't know. I've tried so many times and like I've been told no, like no, you can't help, or like
Yeah, I've
I don't
been
know.
told
It's
no
hard.
too. All the
they do
time.
make it hard. They do make it hard. So I've always just found things that I can do that are really simple. And, I used to work for the very altruistic company Starbucks, but no, and someone used to, or people used to always come through the drive-through, and they would, a couple times people would ask if they could pay for the person behind them. And I always loved that. And so now I've kind of taken that on too. Like, I feel like if I can, something as small as, because it made my day when it ever happened to me. And I always think like, if I can just drive through and say, can I get the person behind me too? Like it's a cup of coffee, but people feel so good after that. And I feel like those are just little tiny ways to put good into the world. But
I've
on a
never
bigger,
heard of that. That is so cool.
yeah,
That's such a
isn't that
good
cool?
tip to just make someone's day. Cost you like $3.
Mhm.
Totally, and it's not like a thing where it's like you can sit there and you can be like, "Look at me, I did something good." Like you're watching them and you're like, "Hey, it was me." It's like you do it, you drive away and you're like, "They didn't even know me. They didn't know they can't thank me, but they're going to feel great, It saves $4, but it's like it's just a really nice thing to do that feels really altruistic. So that's like one thing. But then in LA specifically, I feel like I've done bags for the homeless. There's this great organization called the Giving Spirit that a friend from Theta also, asked me to do with her. And it was so fun. It's, going to this like local church and just bagging bags and of food and toiletry needs. And there's these women's bags that are, menstrual products or different things that just people on the street just can't get access to. And then you can go out to just different areas and you just go to different people and you try to give them bags, but it kind of sparks a conversation. You learn about their lives. And a lot of this was really eye-opening to me because these people, they feel invisible almost. It's like when you think about it, like people avoid homeless people on the street. And so they people don't actually strike up conversations with them ever. And so it's they've talked about how they feel invisible, and that's just so like heartbreaking to me that you know people don't even like look in your direction or smile in your direction, and then people are coming up with them, giving them stuff, but then not just handing them a bag, but opening up a conversation and learning about their life is huge. I think like conversation is just like the biggest part about it. And so that was a really great experience, and it's a huge problem in LA. So that's one thing that I really like to do. But yeah, I don't know. I just like to do
Everything you're saying comes back to a central theme of genuinely caring. And I really love that about you. And everything you've done with your career and your personal life all just comes from a place that's not about yourself. And I think that's, if you're looking to be happy, I think that's something that you have to do is you have to look outside yourself and really genuinely care about other people. So yeah, I love that example too. And in terms of volunteering, so like we did say it was hard. Alex and I both had some difficulties finding volunteer opportunities.
I was
I
like,
remember.
just let me call bingo at the retirement home. And they were like, no, you messed up one time. You can't come back. And I was like, I just want to hang out with the old people.
Oh my God, that would be so fun.
Let me open their mail for them. I was like 17. They're like, no, get out of here.
That one does sound fun. Yeah, I tried to do one. I like a lot of education helping kids, and they said it was a paid program that I couldn't be a part of. And I was like, no, it's okay. I'll do it for free. And I still, unfortunately, they wouldn't even let me do it for free. But I did find a way to volunteer at it was like an elementary school where none of the kids were white. They were all immigrants from Mexico. Like they were all really behind in their school. And I would go there after school almost every day and help them. And even though it took some digging, it was definitely one of the best things I did throughout college.
For the times when you are able to, let loose a little bit, and I know we are well past our handle pulling days of plastic vodka, but what is your favorite after-work cocktail or drink to relax with after a day on the lot or with your coworkers or buying coffee for someone behind you?
My favorite is a cold, crisp glass of Sauvignon Blanc. I love a good glass of wine at night.
I want that right now.
I know, me too.
Me too.
That is my fave.
And Nikki, where can our audience find you? Because I'm sure they're going to want to learn a ton more about you after this episode.
My Instagram at Nikki Cooper, or through you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions or help anyone. I love giving back to the other young people who are trying to get a foot in the door in the business. So reach out to you guys, get my email or my Instagram, Nikki Cooper. Yeah.
That would be amazing. And our last question for you, do you have any last words of encouragement for other young women looking to be where you are now in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think just be really, really patient. Don't be so hard on yourself. Everything happens in due time. If you work hard, those doors will open. I think I never had any connections to the entertainment industry at all. And I worked really hard and I ended up where I am at now. And I think you have to have patience. Don't be hard on yourself, stick with it. And, there are other women out there that are looking out for people. So yeah, go to those people, ask people who have the job that you want to get a drink with you and to get advice. I think that's huge. Let's continue to help each other as women, to start taking these jobs in this industry and in these businesses. Let's be at the top.